Hello everyone. My name is Miles Fiacher. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the Assistant Director of Pre-Orientation and Operations in New Student and Family Programs at American University. Very happy to be hosting, emceeing this presentation with our partners in Housing and Residence Life. They will be talking a little bit more about spring-only housing. And I will have them introduce themselves, but just for a quick name and title, we have Kaylee McDonald, who's the Associate Director of Housing Assignments and Communications, and Samantha Lewis, who is the Housing Assignments Specialist. During this presentation, they'll be talking about completing the spring-only application, priority dates and deadlines, housing options for new and returning students, as well as the student transition back to campus. So without further ado, I will go ahead and give it to Kaylee and Samantha.
Thank you so much, Miles, and welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hello.
Okay. So just to let you know, like Miles mentioned, we do have a lot of content to get through this evening. So we'll go through the application process, a little bit about returning students, and then some for new students, and then just the steps to complete the application. We will review the residence halls and just the eligibility for each hall that we have on campus. And then while this presentation is primarily about living on campus, we did want to provide some resources for off-campus housing if you do have a student that is still kind of up in the air deciding if they want to live on or off campus in the spring. And like Miles mentioned, my name is Kaylee McDonald. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Associate Director of Housing Assignments and Communications.
And I am Sam or Samantha Lewis. I'm the Housing Assignment Specialist, so I oversee our front desk operation as well as handling our back end stuff, including the spring only application.
And we are available Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We are located in a residence hall, Anderson Hall, on the first floor. And if you do ever have questions, obviously we'll be here this evening. But if you have questions, you can always email us at housinginamerican.edu or give us a phone call. And then we do also have live chats every afternoon, 1 to 4, Monday through Friday, and that's Eastern time.
And they're real people, not AI. All right, so we'll get started with the spring only application timeline. The first date has already passed, October 22nd. The application opens, but have no fear. It is still open with the next important date being November 7th. That is for current and returning students to submit their ASAC or gender-based housing considerations requests. And following that is current and returning students' priority application deadline, which is November 14th. And then for new students, the ASAC, gender-based housing considerations, and religious priority deadline is going to be November 17th. And for new students, first year and transfer students, the priority application deadline is December 1st. But for new students, December 1st is also the deadline to request an exemption request for the residency requirement. And we'll get into what that entails in a little bit as well. And the application closes January 16th. But have no fear with those priority deadlines. There'll be rolling applications accepted throughout this time. So if you want to hold off on submitting your application because you're not too sure if you want to live on or off campus yet, you will have the time, and we will be rolling out assignments as they come. And how do you complete your housing application? First step, log into your housing portal. In the application, fill out your contact information, emergency contact, sign the housing license agreement, which is essentially our lease for living on campus, opt in or out of GradGuard renter's insurance. You can get your own renter's insurance as well, not through GradGuard. We just happen to partner with them. And then you complete your roommate profile. So that is, if you're an early riser, if you clean a lot, if you're a messy person, you'd be able to fill that all out there. And provide up to 3 housing type preferences. And that is for all of our current and returning students. And the important dates are as mentioned before. Then for new students, it's all those same steps with an additional step. Upon completing the application, students can proceed to submit the exemption request to the residency requirement. So you will have to complete the entire application and then Following that, you'll be able to complete the exemption request, include the documentation. As a reminder, December 1st is that deadline, but should you be accepted to the university after December 1st, you'll have 96 hours to complete the application and exemption request.
So if you do have a student that is coming to campus for the first time, as a first year student, there are a number of exemptions that we will take to be exempt from the residency requirement. In general, we have a residency requirement for the first 2 years of living on campus. So for those admitted for the spring semester, these are the exemptions. The most common one that we see is kind of distance from home, a local person living within 25 miles of campus. But if your student is over 22, a legal guardian of a minor that resides with the student, these are all exemptions that can be submitted as well. And then down at the bottom, we do have exemption requests that can be considered based off of a disability requirement or a sincerely held religious belief, which I will get into in the next slide. So to request an exemption, like Sam mentioned, the students may request those after completing the housing application. It's all within the housing portal. And then each of those exemption requests that I just mentioned do require specific documentation to be submitted, and all of that is outlined. So if we're thinking of, distance from home, those students will need to provide proof of address and proof of residency at that specific address, as well as a parent's proof of address as well. And then we'll review all of those exemption requests within 30 days of submission, just to provide students some information based off of those requests. If you are your student looking into any medical or disability related exemption requests, those go all through our Academic Support and Access Center's 3-step process. The ASAC will review all documentation that's submitted and determine if an exemption is approved or if a reasonable accommodation can be made on campus. So if your student, is looking for an accommodation, they should be going through that process with the Academic Support and Access Center, and the ASAC will decide kind of what route we will take. Same thing with religious exemption requests. Those will go through our K Spiritual Life Center, and the university chaplain will review and have an interactive process with the student to determine, again, if the exemption is approved or if a reasonable alternative arrangement can be made in on-campus housing.
So we have all gender housing versus gender-based housing considerations. So all gender housing allows students to live with other students who have also opted into all gender housing, regardless of gender, gender identity, or sex assigned at birth. This requires no additional application. It's simply a box you check in the housing application. Do note this is, we have co-ed halls, so this is for your individual room, but we do have gender-based housing considerations. This is a separate process for students who have considerations based on their gender identity. So this can include gender-neutral bathrooms, seeking trans-inclusive roommates, and this is an additional step through the Center for Student Belonging, and we work with their office to ensure students have access to their requested considerations. Assignment information, what everyone wants to know. When am I getting, I applied, when am I going to get my assignment? How can I request where I want to live? So the first step is your preferences. You can mutually request a roommate, and we will do our best to honor those. So long as there's availability. So say you and your friend are both coming back from abroad and you want to be roommates, you'd be able to put that in the application, and we will do our best to place you all together. Or say you have a friend who's currently on campus with an open space, same thing. And you can then rank your preferences based on room types, not by hall, but by room type. So apartment style, suite style, I'll get into that a little bit later, and that'll be based off of your classification eligibility. The timeline for current and returning students, if a student applies by the 14th, they will receive an assignment by the 21st. For new students, if they apply by the 1st, they will receive an assignment by the 12th. And move-in details will be provided throughout December. And cancellation timeline. This doesn't apply to our new students as there is that residency requirement, but for our current students, after you get your assignment, You have the deadline to cancel on no fee of November 30th at 11:59 p.m. If you submit it at 12:20, you will enter that cancellation fee period. First cancellation fee is $1,000. This is if you cancel between December 1st and December 15th. The following December 16th through the 31st, a cancellation fee of 1,500. And then following that, January 1st forward, a cancellation fee of 2,500. And upon check-in, cancellation fee is equal to the entire fall semester costs. And if you receive an assignment after November 30th, you'll have 72 hours to cancel your housing assignment before the cancellation fees go into effect. You can cancel your housing within the housing portal, drop-down menu, cancel request, all of that. Residence Hall overview. Keely, is this you or me?
I can take it over.
Alrighty.
Just finding my mute. So we're going to kind of go through our different residence halls. So if you're unfamiliar with campus, we'll kind of touch on what each area is. So we have our South Campus, which is our Anderson Hall, Centennial, Letts, and Roper. Anderson, Centennial, and Letts primarily house our first year students, and then Roper Hall is home to our Sankofa house, which we will get into shortly. Our next area of campus is what we call our East Campus. So across the street off Nebraska Ave is Constitution, Duber, and Federal Halls. Those are our three primarily sophomore residence halls. However, Duber Hall does host a limited number of graduate students and upper class students as well. So those are our suite style. I kind of call them hotel style rooms, usually typically between two people and an ensuite bathroom. Our North Campus is Cassell, Hughes, Leonard, and McDowell Halls. This is a great area of campus as it's kind of hosting everyone that can live on campus. Leonard and McDowell are primarily sophomore and upper class students, as well as Cassell. The only difference is Cassell is our suite style, whereas Leonard and McDowell are our traditional style halls. And then Hughes Hall is a mix of graduate students, transfer specific floor, as well as first years and some of our abroad folks. And then lastly, we do have two apartment style living options. We have the Nebraska Hall, which is just by the Katzen Art Center, which is still considered on campus. And then we do have the Frequency Apartments, which is located in the Tenleytown area, right by the metro. So that is still considered to be on campus housing, but it is run by a separate management company.
Our residence halls. Oh,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
As I mentioned before, we do all floors are co-ed. And we do have an all-female floor, which can be requested. It is for first year students only. Each floor has a kitchen, community lounge, laundry facilities on each floor, communal spaces, restrooms upkept by housekeeping in our traditional style halls. But if you have that bathroom attached in our suite style, the student is responsible for cleaning that themselves. If you're curious and you want to see these pictures, you can go view our website for our virtual tours, 3D tours, and you can have little measurements and everything. All right. First year residence halls. So the first style is our traditional style, the most common one for our first years. These are the rooms with communal bathrooms, pod style or gender, and then the shared communal spaces. These are in Anderson Hall, Letts Hall, and Hughes Hall. You'll see double as single and double occupancy available. So double as single, I'm not sure if we have a specific slide explaining these. These will be a little bit more limited for our students. It's essentially buying out the double room for one student. So you have both beds, both sets of furniture, but one person living there. Then we have our suite style, and the suite styles are with the private bathrooms and the shared communal spaces. For first years, they're only eligible for Centennial Hall. So it's 2 bedrooms connected by bathroom. A lot of people say Jack and Jill style. So it's 4 people to 1 bathroom, but 2 in each bedroom. And there are new transfer students. They will self-classify within the housing application, whether it be first year, sophomore, or upperclassmen, and then they will provide preferences up to the 3 halls. or 3 hall preferences based on how they self-classify. And there is a transfer specific floor available in Hughes Hall. Sophomore residence halls. So they have the traditional style, which is the communal bathrooms, pod or gendered, which are in Leonard Hall and McDowell. As mentioned, same thing with the double a single and the double occupancy. And then we get a little bit more options with our suite style, the suites with private bathrooms, shared communal spaces. Cassell Hall is 2 to 3 shared bedrooms with a living area. Centennial Hall, same hall as mentioned before. They're on separate floors from our first years. And then East Campus, Constitution, Duber, Federal Hall is the shared bedroom with a private bathroom. Upper class residence halls, they also have a little bit more options. So they have the traditional styles, as mentioned, Leonard and McDowell. And then suite style, Cassell and Duber Hall. And then apartment styles where their difference comes in. So these are apartments with private bathrooms, living areas, and kitchens, and the shared communal spaces. So there is Nebraska Hall. So it's a single occupancy bedroom in a 2, 3, or 4-person apartment, or the frequency apartments, which have a couple of different styles, whether it be a studio, a 2-bedroom. There's a couple of different styles over there. 2 or 4-person apartments with private bathroom, laundry, and kitchenette. There is an on-site gym, study room, and parking available for an additional fee. Residential communities.
Awesome. So the first community that we have here is Sankofa House. So Sankofa House was established in 2020. It's an intentional residential experience to foster the vibrant community supporting personal, social, and academic success, primarily for our Black student community. It's open at all class levels. So we have first years to upper class all in one hall, which is really great. And if students are interested, they're able to select Sankofa House as an option in our housing application. And then we can also connect you with the community director to get more information and learn about what it looks like for the community aspect, what it's like to live there, things like that. And as mentioned, it's housed in Roper Hall, which was a residence hall that recently underwent renovation this past summer. So it has all new community spaces, all new furniture, and it's a really great space. And we can kind of see a little photo of our current residents in that just down below. And then here we have 2 other themed communities. The first one is called the First Flight Floor. So this is a supportive and enriching residential community designed for students who are first in their families to go to college. So this kind of provides some additional resources, navigating the university life, and kind of providing that additional support. Again, this is open at all class levels. So first years through seniors can participate in this community, and it is housed in Leonard Hall, which is one of our traditional style halls. And then the last theme community is our Eagles Inn community. So this is a residential community dedicated to affirming the LGBTQIA+ students and their allies. Anyone is open to join this community, though. You don't need to be a part of any of those groups. It's just a kind of another safe and supportive learning environment if students are interested in being in their authentic selves and kind of making more meaningful connections. And this is also open to all class levels. And this one is housed in McDowell Hall. Awesome. So just preparing to arrive to campus. If you're a returning student, hopefully you have this down pat in terms of the things you want to bring to campus. But I think, especially when coming back to campus for the first time, the big thing is when in doubt, leave it out. Plan to bring or ship things to campus once you know you need it, especially if you've been, studying abroad or gone for a while. Students can sometimes forget what they need exactly. So if you aren't sure yet, make sure you leave that out. The big thing being kind of a green campus as we are at AU, always trying to choose to reuse items. So storage containers, use reusable bags to pack items to make sure you're not throwing away kind of a lot of boxes once you get to campus. The other big thing is considering the climate. DC stays cold until about March, so maybe you want to rethink all of your summer wardrobe, but it will start to get a little bit more toasty as we approach final season. So just kind of think about that. And then I think something that people kind of forget sometimes is packing a bag of essentials. So having those things that you need maybe the night of or the first day in case you're too tired to fully unpack once you get to campus. It can be something that, is really helpful to have, toilet like toothbrush and things like that right off the bat. And the big thing is don't forget the hygiene products, shower shoes, soaps in the shower caddy, and cleaning supplies if you are in one of those halls that has an ensuite bathroom. On the side here, we do have a couple of items with exceptions, about specifically pets. If you are someone who has a pet, only small fish are accepted, and then only those approved through the Academic Support and Access Center are permitted. So just note that. Bed risers, instead of bed risers, we do not allow those. You would have to rent it through our housing portal via for a loft. And then the other big one is a microwave. So while we don't allow separate microwaves, you can rent what we call a micro fridge combination through our partner Go Breeze. I like to say that you don't always need a microwave because we do have microwaves in every single lounge, which is available on every single floor in the residence halls. So it is available to you if you don't want to do the rental. And the last big one is coffee makers. I know students are always drinking coffee nowadays. So we do allow single serve coffee makers with an automatic shutoff. The big thing is we just don't allow any exposed coils. So any of those types of appliances should be used in the floor kitchen. And here's some just general move-in information. So if you are, moving someone in that's been a resident before, some of this information will be familiar to you. So residence halls will open in the spring on 9 a.m. on Friday, January 9th. All of our front desks will open up on that Sunday, but we do have 2 area front desks that will be open in Anderson and McDowell halls should there be any problems that come up during those times. And then to check in, the big thing is picking up your one card if you don't already have one, or if you've lost it during your time away from campus, you will be able to go to the one card office and grab a new one. And then you can arrive to the residence hall, drive right up, park the vehicle, and then start unloading your items into your room. The big thing that we ask in Housing and Residence Life is that you go and actually check yourself in our housing portal to let us know that you're here. We'll want to know that you're, moved in and getting ready to go. So doing that check-in is just helpful for our staff. And then once you unload your car, you return your cart, and then you can start unpacking your room. And then students will be prompted upon checking in to do a quick inventory of their room via the housing portal. That just tells us if there's any, damages that you want to know, maybe a tape mark on the wall that you don't want to be charged for later on. So we always recommend you doing that before you fully start setting up these rooms, similar to these photos right here. And then just some last important dates that we like to highlight because it is kind of a funky time. So the university is closed for winter break. So our office will be closed from December 24th through January 4th. So if your student applies for spring housing, just know that they won't get an assignment until we return on the 5th. For anyone going to be participating in new student orientation. So these are our brand new incoming first year and transfer students. They'll be permitted to move in a little bit earlier, so they're able to fully participate in the programming on January 8th and 9th. This is a great opportunity for those new students to meet their OLs, some new and returning students, faculty and staff, learn about the AU resources, and also get acclimated to campus before everyone comes back on that Friday. And then our winter welcome is primarily evening programs, but a lot of other programs happening once students return to campus, and then it will extend through the first weeks of classes. It's not something that's required of any students, but it is highly, highly encouraged to get involved on campus, especially if your student has been away for a little while to kind of get back into the swing of things at AU. All right, and then just to kind of cap us off, I do want to cover a couple of pieces of information about off-campus housing. So our off-campus housing, just kind of for some perspective, American University is located in what we call Ward 3 in Washington, D.C. So that puts us near the Tenleytown, Friendship Heights, Spring Valley, and Cathedral Heights neighborhoods. Most of our students do live in the kind of Tenleytown, Cathedral Heights area or very, very close by in Glover Park, Georgetown, and Van Ness and Cleveland Park. And then just another kind of fun statistics for you. 71% of students do live with others, but half of those students live with just one other person in terms of roommates. And then I think I have a cool little graphic here. So those 80% of students living off campus live in an apartment. And just to kind of put into perspective, the kind of cost of an apartment for students living alone versus students living with others, you're typically going to pay more for those living alone. But our average monthly rent during this survey was about just under $1,500 a month. So I always like to mention just some different factors to consider, when deciding if you're going to live on campus or if you're going to live off campus. So if you're thinking of off campus, the big thing to think about is location and proximity to whatever you are kind of looking for. So the first one that's very obvious is it walkable or have easy access to AU? Where does it kind of put you on bus lines, or can you walk to campus? Does it also have easy access to other places? So if your student has a job or an internship, or they're looking to have either of those things, is it easy to access the public transportation or other modes of transportation to get to those other places? And then I always look at and recommend looking at proximity to like major things that you'll need. So grocery stores, restaurants, banks, and other necessities that you will need kind of on the day-to-day basis. For students looking to live off campus, cost is also a big thing. So I always recommend that students look at monthly budget and not just look at the cost of the housing, but look at, the cost of the rent, food, transportation, things like that. One of the really great things that I like to always plug, if you are a student and you're enrolled in full time, your student will have access to the UPass, which is the kind of metro rail pass that is included in our students, the student cost at EAU. So that can kind of help offset some of the transportation costs to and from campus. But then the other thing to definitely talk about with your student as it relates to cost is, are they okay with sharing a room or an apartment? So, reducing that cost, looking at if that specific unit includes utilities or any amenities. So if the building has laundry, how much does it cost? What does it look like? What are the other utilities and amenities, and what those fees might add to the rent? And then also, working with your student and seeing, what does the security deposit look like? What does the application fee look like? And just making sure you have those kind of costs accounted for as well. And then just some other random considerations that I think are really important to think about that are often not considered. So the big thing is, asking your student kind of, what are you looking for in an off-campus rental? Are you looking for, is the proximity important to you? Is it important for you to have a private bedroom? Is on-site laundry important? What kind of things are you looking for? And then also talk with your student about what you're looking for in a potential roommate, especially if you have a student that's a returning student. They probably know some people that might be coming back in the spring, but maybe they don't live with someone who maybe they're best friends with because they have different living styles and things like that. So kind of talk through what they might be looking for in a roommate so they're able to cohabitate kind of well. And then lastly, making sure your student is looking at the lease. So is it a 12-month lease, especially if you're signing in the spring? What does that look like? Is it a sublet? Is it month to month? So kind of in the spring, it can be difficult. Going from January to January, it's a little bit different than an academic year lease. So make sure you're having those conversations with your student to make sure that they understand what they're signing up for. And then just want to kind of plug, we do have some information about off-campus housing on our website. So we have a really, really great off-campus listing site run in partnership with apartments.com. So all of these landlords and apartments are required to provide their proof of basic business license, which is a requirement in DC to be a renter. And I actively look at all of the basic business licenses that are submitted for landlords to submit and be on our site. So that's something that I'm always looking for. And you can go through, look for sublets, look for active listings by price and location. You can see their distance from campus and see kind of other amenities that they have to offer. And then the other great thing is especially if you're a student looking for a roommate, you can search for other AU students also looking for a roommate through the site. The great thing about this particular off-campus housing site is people add their apartments or their houses or their sublets with the intention of advertising to the AU community. It is locked behind this student login. So other people can't just kind of come in here and look around. Same with the roommates, it's locked behind the AU student login. So you can, know that your information is only being shared with people in the community. And then also, as parents, you will probably be aware of some of these other resources that aren't affiliated with AU, but apartments.com is also a great resource. I like to also look at Google Maps, sitting down with your student to see what neighborhoods they might be interested in and looking at apartment buildings that are nearby. And then the last big one is Facebook groups. DC kind of apartment and sublet Facebook groups are very, very much alive and well. So joining a couple of those to kind of see if people are subletting for 6 months, maybe you only need that until the end of the semester. Those are really great places to kind of start and kind of get some information, or just to kind of see. Also great for like gauging price and stuff like that, which is really helpful when doing that search. And then I know we mentioned it earlier, but we do really want people to stay connected. So email, phone, live chat us at any time, or live chat specifically Monday through Friday, 1 through 4, but you can always email us 24/7. And then also, if you encourage your student, also you can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook, Home at AU. We are always posting things about events, different opportunities and different application pieces throughout the year. So it's a great way to kind of stay connected with our department. All right, any questions?
Yes, thank you, Kaylee and Samantha. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and then we'll move over into the Q&A side. If you have a question, just go ahead and put it in the question section, and I will raise it to the rest of the group so it can be answered.